Hi, Chris Montera here at EMS Today 2015, and we're here at the Physio Control podcast studio, and we're interviewing the EMS 10 winners, and I have with me Dr. Doug Kupas. Hello, sir.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, I'm great. So tell me a little bit about your background.
My background, I had memory lane through the vendor hall here because they're talking about GEMS being 35 years old, and 35 years ago is when I started EMS as a volunteer.
Wow.
And when I started and took my first EMT course. So I've been in EMS almost 35 years now. Started as a volunteer, worked a paid job as a paramedic through college, went to medical school, and have had EMS in my blood ever since. You can't get it out. So I still practice in the field. I still respond to calls as a system medical director, and I have a job with the state as the state medical director in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania, correct. And so I think it's really cool because you're an MD and an EMT, correct?
Correct.
That's so cool.
More importantly, an MD and an EMT, because that's more important than the EMTP, right?
You're right. Yeah, the P is kind of redundant. And so, for the EMS 10 award, what did you win that for? What innovation did you come up with?
Well, I'm first of all very fortunate to have been nominated for that, because I think it's a misnomer to say that I won it.
Oh, wait, we'll just wait 1 second. Yeah, see, I knew
that was going to happen, right? It's going to happen in 5 minutes.
Right. So we'll cut to the Yep. So tell us what you won the award for.
Well, I think it's a misnomer to say that I won the award, because it was a tremendous team effort. In Pennsylvania, we are fortunate to have statewide protocols that cover the largest population in the United States under a single statewide protocol.
Wow.
With 12.5 million people under one mandatory protocol. And so we established a statewide protocol for cardiac arrest care that we think is very evidence-based, but also very forward-thinking, and we've established some educational materials and programs to go along with that. But I say it wasn't me because there was a big team. Pennsylvania is one of the heart rescue states, so the Heart Rescue Project in Pennsylvania collaborated with the Department of Health, our Bureau of EMS, to very closely on many parts of the projects, and one of them was establishing this statewide protocol.
So how hard was it to, I can't even imagine having a statewide protocol. I mean, we change our protocols at our agency, and it's 80 people. You have to, how many providers do you have in Pennsylvania?
We have registered providers. We have about 55,000 or so. It's always difficult to get a handle on how many of those are extremely active or active at all, but we have 55,000 providers.
How do you disseminate this information to them?
And over 1,000 agencies.
We're changing. Yeah. How do you do that?
When we started doing this back in 2004, we had a big group from across the state that establishes the protocols, and largely it's the final work comes down to our regional medical directors group that sort of has the final approval vote on the protocols. But once they're updated, which we do every 2 years unless there's an emergency update that needs to be done, but generally every 2 years we do an update. We put a learning management system program together that everyone can take as part of the update, and then many places deliver that in person also.
Oh, very cool.
And with the cardiac arrest protocol, it was a little bit special because that year in 2013, we devoted almost the entire protocol update to cardiac arrest protocol and the post-arrest protocol, and so then almost all of the educational material was based on that.
Do you have a statewide EMR, or how do you guys take care of your?
We do not. We have standards that they must meet, but any vendor that meets the standard can do that. But all of that has to be submitted to the state. We have going back to about 1990, nearly 100% statewide electronic data submission.
Oh. So I know you're an academic as well as a medical director. So tell me, have you seen any outcomes? It may be too early to tell, but have you seen any outcomes pre versus post implementation? Well,
obviously that was one of my big concerns, was is this doing anything? Because we have some very forward-thinking pieces in our protocol too that don't necessarily walk lockstep with national guidelines, and we have done that before with our protocols to good success. But we compared the CARES cardiac arrest registry to enhance survival, the CARES data for our agencies in 2012 to 2013. And you have to keep in mind that the statewide protocol became effective July 1, 2013, so it was really only about half a year of full data. But we had a 17% increase in relative increase in survival to neurologic intact discharge in all-comer cardiac arrests. And when we extrapolate those to state numbers, we think that that means for that entire 2-year time about 150 or so additional patients saved.
Okay, excellent. So you walk me through, you brought up these great visual aids. Walk me through, is this the actual protocol, and is this kind of the flow chart that's in each protocol?
No, actually our training is a two-step educational process. Part of it we call the science to the pit crew, and it's basically around the science that backs up continuous compressions, no interruptions, all that sort of thing. And that's an hour-and-a-half thing that is on our learning management system. Okay. And then we developed a pit crew approach and a separate course that about 7,000 people have taken that's high-fidelity simulation pit crew training based on the protocol. And these are some of the resources that we use for that. There's a graphics that are specific to the Pennsylvania protocol that specifies what each individual does in each position. We actually have those for 2-person, 3-person, 4-person, all the way up to 6-person crews, and different combinations of BLS and ALS. So we have 2-person quick response services that essentially are a vehicle and an AED, and 2 BLS providers who are able to do pit crew approach, and we have 6-person teams with ALS that can do pit crew approach.
Yeah, this is pretty neat. I really like that. And so they can so they train on this, but then can they just pull it out, say they get on scene and like, oh, what was that?
Actually, we don't suggest it for that. We suggest that this is the quick way of training to the protocol. You have to know the protocol first. You have to know the principles, and then this is what can be used in the pit crew training to reinforce it with high-fidelity simulation. And then what you're holding now is another project, which is a checklist.
Right.
As many people have heard, but we have a great difficulty getting the cultural uptake in EMS to use checklists. But we all know that, and everybody's heard, the airline industry, when the engine goes out in the plane, the pilot pulls out a checklist. But when we're in the middle of a cardiac arrest, we forget to hook up the end-tidal CO2, or we forget various things. And the checklist is not meant to be the protocol. It's meant to be the specific things that are often missed or forgotten. And when you flip it over, it's the post-ROSC checklist. Because we've found that a lot of times a crew will get ROSC and everybody's high fives and package the patient and down the steps, and then the patient rearrests, and we haven't done the important things of titrating the oxygen and getting the 12-lead ECG and augmenting the blood pressure with pressor drips and that sort of thing. So we suggest that they do all of the post-ROSC checklist at the scene before moving the patient.
Oh, that's great. These are absolutely great. So as we look forward to kind of the movement in cardiac arrest care, and I think I heard a lot of it today too. I don't want to be dead unless I'm, in the cath lab and dead. Do you think we're really heading that way?
That I think is one of the trickiest things to think about. And if you think about this, well, what could keep you up at night when you're doing these things? Part of it could be are we leaving anybody behind? On the other hand, with my own EMS, I'm a medical director for a small EMS agency also, and last year that agency had a ROSC rate of 63%. That agency has an overall all-comer cardiac arrest to neurologically intact rate of 20%, and a shockable rhythms rate in the 45% or so range.
Wow.
And we institute these things, and so the agency also does field termination of everybody else. So we had a 63% ROSC rate, but almost all the rest, 30+%, was field terminations. And you wonder, are any of these field terminations patients that if we got ECMO and to the cath lab, you know, while ECMO's in process, or could they be survivors? I think in the future we will figure out that there's a small subset, you know, when it's the 40-year-old person who's in persistent VFib and you've got great end-tidal CO2s with your great cardiac arrest care, those might be the ones that you transport and you know, get linked into a cath lab and that sort of thing. Right now, you know, most of EMS is not set up that way, and
well, most of the country isn't either.
Most of the country isn't.
You can't drive everywhere and get a cath lab.
You know, and what we do really well sometimes is when there are a couple survivors, instead of looking for the evidence or trying to figure out who exactly we should do this to, you start hearing things like, you know, I don't want to be pronounced until I'm dead in the cath lab, and that to me is a bit scary because you know, we could end up having a whole population that right now we have a population that isn't comfortable realizing that some people shouldn't get CPR. It's made for certain people that have survivable issues, but it's not made for everybody whose heart has stopped, and we torture a lot of people with it that, you know, we shouldn't. I think if we got to the point where now, instead of just the ritual of CPR, people are going to be expecting the ritual of CPR and ECMO and, you know, cath lab or ventricular assist device, etc., when they're 80, 90, 70, whatever the cutoff is, that could be a problem.
Right. So, we didn't lose our power. Okay, good. Okay. I was like, all of a sudden the
just
power.
Our extra lighting.
Yeah, just our extra lighting. So, all of that's well and good, and we are looking toward where we're going in the future. Tell me what it means to you to have somebody like Physio-Control recognizing us as an industry for the things that we're doing. And they're turning 60. Jim's is turning 35 this year. What does it mean to you as an EMS physician, as an EMS provider, that people are recognizing us for this, for the innovations we're doing?
Well, I think that you know, getting an award like this is very humbling, but it is the bigger picture is that it is very important that innovations in EMS and forward movement and forward thinking in EMS does get recognized. So I think that that's you know, we have to just like with our cardiac arrest program, one of the most important parts is celebrating our survivors. I think EMS needs to be better at celebrating the good things that EMS does, and this I think is part of it, and I'm very humbled to have been chosen as one of these.
Great. Well, congratulations, Doc. Well deserved for sure, and thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for joining us at the EMS Today 2015 Physio-Control Podcast Studio. And for more videos and more of these type of links from the EMS 10 Awards, join us at emstoday.com or thepromednetwork.com. I'm Chris Montera, and keep watching for more videos on this topic.